Before we dig into this brand new episode of Cinema Shame, let's hitch a ride in the flashback machine to hear what Dan had to say on his last visit into the Shame Quarters. This is the Yes, Virginia, There Is a Santa Claus Award to the best Santa not in A Miracle on 34th Street.
Just the best Santa anywhere. Anywhere else.
That's
but
anywhere
besides,
else.
Has he been mentioned today at all?
No. He hasn't been. He may not have been mentioned today anywhere.
Oh.
Anywhere. Like, any podcast, in any conversation, this guy has not been mentioned.
So he was a very good Santa, and then that's about it. And it's not David Huddleston, right?
No.
Okay, I just want to be clear.
He appeared in two episodes of The Golden Girls.
Come on.
it's Douglas Seal, because I just looked it up.
Yes.
I would have never gotten that, so thank you, Allan. I thank you for that.
I never would have gotten either. I had to look it up.
But in what movie?
Get out of here.
Highlight.
Tell me, Allan.
Ernest Saves Christmas.
Yes.
I take it you really needed a tree.
No, I've already got one, but I got a friend I think could maybe use it.
Which I've also never seen.
Yeah. Same. I can say I remember wanting to see it.
It's everyone's favorite time of year. Trim the tree, light the menorah, replace dead light bulbs, and cue up our favorite tradition, a brand new Cinema Shame episode with my favorite Floridian, Dan Delgado, host of the industry and the Jockey Club, the greatest podcast about Let It Ride that has ever or will ever be produced.
Challenge accepted.
Dan, how do you feel about being the Cinema Shame Christmas guy?
I'm unsure how I feel about that because I don't recall being consulted on it.
Well, it doesn't matter how you feel because we just decided it was so.
Did we have a meeting that I missed? And
you didn't show up, so it was unanimous.
What really gets me is that it's now been a year since we talked about Santa Claus the movie, and I just can't believe it's been that long.
That's the truly mind-blowing thing, was like, we recorded that a week ago.
Yes, exactly. How was that not last week?
It does also help because this movie has a very important part in Orlando film history.
I gotta say that was actually a very pleasant surprise to see that Ernest Saves Christmas takes place pretty much entirely in Orlando. I was not expecting that. I do live in Florida. I live in South Florida. I don't live in Orlando, but I've been there enough times. So seeing the old Church Street Station area, what that looks like, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, there it is. This is maybe the best Orlando movie since Miami Connection, which is a fantastic Orlando movie, by the way, Miami Connection. A terrible Miami movie, but it's a fantastic Orlando movie.
The only reason why I know what like its significance is because there's the moment at the beginning where they make a reference to Canada. And whenever I see a movie make a reference to Canada, I instantly assume, oh, it was shot in Canada. And then so I looked it up, and it was like, no, it was shot in Florida. And it was one of the first films shot at Disney Studios.
Actually, they did shoot a little bit of this movie in Canada.
Okay.
The reindeer scenes, so, I mean, we'll just skip right to the reindeer bits. So, the reindeer didn't like Florida.
I wonder why.
It said that they immediately started shedding their antlers, and if a reindeer sheds its antlers, it gets all bloody and gross, and they didn't know what to do about that. So they tried fake antlers.
Well, and then a bunch of them got tattoos and started doing meth.
Well, so after they tried and failed with fake antlers, they just waited to shoot some reindeer scenes, tacked them in, but they did that in Canada. Somewhere. I didn't bother to write that fact down.
Where reindeers can roam free.
Yes. They're not prosecuted. We've arrived at this point because on that last episode, we watched, as you said, Santa Claus the movie. And in that episode, as we were talking about Douglas Seal's place on that tremendous quiz that I had, it was revealed that neither of you had seen Ernest Saves Christmas.
Yeah, I guess that was a mistake. Yeah, I don't remember necessarily saying I hadn't seen this one yet, but, it is what it is.
Now,
I should have known this was
coming. I asked
coming.
this of Allan earlier, but how did you watch any of the Ernest movies?
Before this, as in before last week, I had seen one other Ernest film. That was the classic Ernest Goes to Jail. I saw that in the early 90s, maybe like 1991. I think I'm probably like 16, 17. And I remember it was okay. Like that one was like kind of amusing to me.
Right to that one, huh?
Yeah, and oddly enough, I was able to keep up with Ernest Goes to Jail, even though I had not seen the previous films. That
and
did
my
not
only
matter.
previous Ernest experience was Ernest Goes to Camp. And I was at the exact right age where I enjoyed that movie. But then when Ernest Saves Christmas came out, I was like, oh, I'm too old for this shit.
Really? It was that quick? It's only like a 2-year difference between those movies.
Yeah, no, I literally went from like 11 to 12, and that was enough for me to go like, yeah, no, I can't watch an Ernest movie anymore. Those are for kids.
No, I'm 100% with you on this, Allan. And I just want to know, like, is this how we clarify this? Like, this is for children, like for small children? Is that how we look at this? It's not for the whole family, but, you know, if you're 11 and under, this is a movie for you?
Yeah.
I that's the only way I feel like it can be fairly judged, is as a movie made for very young children.
But it's weird, though, because the Ernest character wasn't specifically a kid's character. He became through other process. So I think let's get back into.
But I think that's true. Like that the exact same is true with Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah.
Like Pee Wee Herman was not originally a kid's character. He was actually a very adult character. But just because kids adored him, it just became a kid's character.
To those looking back on Ernest and going, what the hell were we thinking in the mid to late 80s, I do think it requires a trip back to how Ernest got to be a movie star in the first place. Because if you take any of these movies out of context, do you understand why it exists?
Do I know why Ernest exists? Yes, I am familiar with Ernest and his origins as a pitchman for all sorts of things. He was on TV commercials in the 1980s for, if you lived in certain parts of the country, you would have seen him. Maybe you would have seen him in like a commercial compilation. So yes, that I can definitely remember. And yes, that context is very important actually for understanding this.
Like, you're an unsuspecting teenager who queues up Ernest Saves Christmas, and our main character barges into an unseen neighbor's house and just rampages the place as like a centerpiece gag of the film. You should be rightly confused.
I genuinely, because I was trying to remember if there's a similar scene like that in the first film, because I don't remember there being one like that. Or that's why in this one, it just sort of like, oh, they really want people to remember the commercials in this one. Like, as opposed to the first one, where it seemed like they were actually trying to establish him as like a separate character. As a movie character, as opposed to the guy from the commercial.
I didn't watch Ernest Goes to Camp for this episode, so I can't help you there. So, the character of Ernest P. Worrell was created by John Cherry. He was developed him for an advertising agency. Ernest appeared in commercials for everything, really. I listed natural gas, Sprite, Mellow Yellow, Toyota, dairy products, banks, convenience stores, local news, orange juice, aluminum siding. That's how far I got in the compilation before I stopped watching Ernest commercials. And in each commercial, Ernest talks to the camera/viewers as the unseen character Vern. Vern is supposed to be his neighbor, and he torments him relentlessly just by being Ernest. And that's the joke.
You know, Vern, there's nothing like touring around Florida, enjoying the great lemon taste of Sprite. But, Vern, there's two things I've learned. One, that icy cold Sprite tastes better than 7-Up. And B, never, when in Florida, ever do this to an alligator.
The moment of the movie where I was like, okay. And so the very beginning of the film, when you first meet Ernest, we can gloss past Santa Claus at the airport for a second.
Christmas tree, oh Christmas tree, oh Christmas tree, oh, Christmas tree. Oh, Christmas tree, oh, Christmas tree. Oh, Christmas tree, oh, Christmas tree. Oh, Christmas tree, oh, Christmas tree.
Hey, buddy, hurry up. I gotta get to the airport.
Oh, don't worry, mister. We'll make that plain. I have lived my life in the fast lane.
But when you first see Ernest and he's driving the cab and he's singing "Oh Christmas Tree," and that's the only thing he's just singing that over and over again, I gotta say, I'm kind of amused. I'm kind of entertained for like 5 seconds. And I'm like, oh, Jim Varney, he is kind of a funny guy. And it lasted about 5 to 10 seconds. Once he starts driving like a lunatic and he's interacting with, then it's like all over. It's like the bubble popped right there.
Before Dad got here, James and I were just chatting, and I mentioned that sort of the thing that sort of I find odd about Jim Varney is that I actually really like him as a performer, except when he's doing Ernest. And even like in this movie, when Ernest plays other people, I actually thought those scenes were funny. It's when he's playing Ernest that I'm like, I hate this guy.
That's it. That's exactly it. All right, I'm going to say this. Because the last time we did this, okay, we're talking Santa Claus is the movie, and the first thing out of Allan's mouth is that it is a movie that looks incredibly expensive and incredibly cheap at the same time. And I'm like, okay, that's it. The podcast over. That's it. Because he said everything right there. And he just did it again. That's exactly. I'm so on board with that. Because, yes, when Ernest is the other guys, when he's, pretending to be other people, it's kind of amusing. I got to admit, it's kind of amusing. But when he's Ernest and when every time he's sticking his face in the camera, oh, man.
Where I learned this sort of lesson about Jim Varney is he's actually a cast member on what is regarded as one of the worst TV shows of all time, Pink Lady and Jeff. Mm-hmm. And he's actually really good on it. Whenever he's in a sketch on that show, it's a funny sketch. So that's where I learned, Jim Varney can be in something awful and still be hilarious. But then somehow when he does his most famous character, that stops being true.
Well, it's worth it going back to look at all of the shows that he had a recurring character on. He was never a main actor in any of those shows, but the Norman Lear produced Fernwood Tonight with Martin Mull and Fred Willard. He was in the TV adaptation of Operation Petticoat, and it's almost one of those situations where with Jim Varney, less is always more. He's always welcome when he comes in for a bit. Ernest is just always there, and that's the main problem with the Ernest movies, is that, like you said, the characters are always more funny, but then you have to wonder, are the characters funny because of the setup? Is it the process of taking Ernest and putting him into those characters based on what he's established as the Ernest character to begin with?
Superior Talent Incorporated. Marty Brock
is my second-born son without a sliver of gratitude, who wouldn't even pick up his own mother at the airport. I'm only glad his father never lived to see the day when his son would treat his own mother this way. Me, a lonely old woman forced to cope in a world of indifference.
Hold on just a minute.
Where is he? Where is Martin? I need him to help me with my will. Having walked from the airport, I'll be dead soon.
I don't know what to do. He's with a client.
That's life for you. You have two sons, one good, one bad. And wouldn't you know it, with my luck, the good one dies.
But Mrs. Brock, I'm sure he didn't know you were coming.
Don't side with him, honey. There's no future in it. Just tell me where he is.
Is it like you've had so much of Ernest, now anything is great?
I think part of it is just the fact that Ernest was specifically developed to be an obnoxious character. Mm-hmm. The whole point is that Vern doesn't want Ernest in. Vern is annoyed by Ernest.
Right, and we're Vern. So, the viewer is always set up as Vern, as the viewer looking through the camera. So that's an unusual premise when your entire bit is based on annoying Vern / the viewer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it goes much better in a 30-second commercial than, for like 90 minutes, right? Like for 30 seconds, it can be annoying, and it's kind of funny at the same time, perhaps, although I haven't seen any of those commercials in a long time, but nonetheless. But all right, now we're going to do that.
There is an entire collection on Tubi, and you can go through and watch them all.
Yeah, that's...
I think it's 52 minutes of Ernest commercials.
Which means if it's on Tubi and it's a collection like that, that means at some point that was released on VHS. Like, that is why that exists. Like,
sure it was. I'm sure it was. I'm sure it sold shockingly well as also. Oh, all right. I wait. One more thing about Ernest being funny. The first time he says blister instead of blitzen, all right, that worked. That worked for me. Not an audible laugh, but I was like, blister. That's kind of.
But it's funny because he does it once at the beginning, and then it's called back at like the very end, and it's like, you guys, you have to do it at least one more time because you have to do it in the middle because we have completely forgotten about that joke.
Oh, maybe you have, but I didn't.
See, I wrote it down. That's how I remember. So it was enough for blister. Oh, yeah, that's how that went for me.
I take it you really needed a tree.
No, I've already got one, but I got a friend I think could maybe use it. Besides, it'd be a shame for the little fella not to have a home for the holidays.
It's nice to find somebody with such devotion to Christmas.
I don't tell many people this, but Christmas is just about my favorite time. Ever since I was a little kid, I always felt like it was my own personal holiday. I'm at one with the Yuletide, know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
I even memorized the names of all the reindeer, like Donder and Blister.
That's Blitzen.
I don't know if we want to discuss the actual points of the plot, but where Santa Claus comes to town. He's in Orlando. He's looking for some.
Okay, before we get into I just want to say that.
Yeah.
As a Canadian, the idea of somebody coming to Florida from Toronto during the holidays going like, oh man, I just want it to snow. No, that would never fucking happen. There's not a Canadian who is like, oh, I really miss snow. I really would like to see more snow. That he's going to Florida specifically so he doesn't have to be around snow. So that, as a Canadian, I was deeply offended, and that is by far the most offensive part.
I'm so sorry that happened to you. I'm so sorry that happened to you. So
where did snow touch you? That's the joke there.
Everywhere. That's the problem. As a Canadian, it touches me everywhere.
Everywhere. So Santa's in town in Orlando looking for a public television children's host, and
to be Santa Claus because he's retiring.
To be the new Santa Claus.
Okay,
yes.
like let's just write like the thing that infuriated me is like, okay, you're Santa Claus. You're losing your memory. You need to find your replacement and make sure that Christmas goes together. Hey, let's wait till Christmas fucking Eve to get the guy. I mean, literally, like, do it on Boxing Day the year before. That way the guy has a full year to get this sorted, figured out.
Allan, that's not a Christmas movie. Nobody wants to watch a Boxing Day movie.
It would do very well in Canada. It would do very well in Canada.
Boxing Day is the day after Christmas for Americans, just so you know. Since we don't really do that thing here. No. Is Boxing Day fun, by the way, Allan? Is that a fun day?
It's really just our version of Black Friday.
Oh, okay. Really?
Like if you go back historically, It was the day in like British sort of like estates where the lord of the house would for a day swap places with sort of his head servant and the other. So it was sort of like a day where like, hey, you get to live like us for a day. And that was what Boxing Day was. But in Canada, that never happened because we didn't have that aristocracy. So it really is just the day after Christmas where in the past you could go to like line up and try to buy a TV set for like 50% off.
Oh, my God. OK. Why did I always think this was about like taking gifts and boxing them and giving them to, I don't know, needy people or something?
I mean, there's an element of that, like sort of like, you know, like the rich people were looking after the, you know, the poor amongst them. And
okay. All right. So now that we've got our Boxing Day set.
You didn't think you were going to learn something today with this episode, did you? Did you, listener?
And all right, so Santa is on Christmas Eve, very poor planning. He has come to and he's come to Orlando to find his replacement, and he's looking for the Orlando Children's Museum. And then when we're in there, you can clearly see the signs that it's the Orlando Science Center. Did anybody else take note of that it is not the Orlando Children's Museum? That's actually
there are also Children's Museum signs. They just didn't get all.
There are signs. Yes, the prop department put those damn signs out front. That's true. But that's the Orlando Science Center.
I missed that. That's a good spot on Dan's part.
Well, since it is an Orlando movie, and like the best one since the Miami Connection that I've seen. So Okay, so all right. I really don't have a lot of notes up until he's destroying Vern's house. So, and I want to be clear about. I have one note for this. One note. It's an extended scene in which we go. He's got a Christmas tree. He wants to give it to Vern, and then he just starts, I don't know, screwing this man's house up, like destroying it. And I wrote the destroying Vern's house. I hate this. That's it. That's my note.
Ho, 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 Vern. Merry.
I thought you said this Vern was a friend of yours.
Oh, Vern's just like that. He'll do anything for a laugh. Come on. It's Santa's little party helper.
Hi.
This is Harmony. She's been having kind of a tough time, so I'm helping her out. You know, kind of a father image kind of thing. As the twig is bent, so grows the tree. Know what I mean? It'll look good right over here, Vern.
I hated that scene more than any other.
We've missed the introduction of the other important character, who is the scrappy orphan type. She's not actually an orphan, but she is basically in an orphan. She's more a runaway.
She's run away from home because it's misery, and she has joined the cast of this movie to make our lives miserable as well.
It was funny because I looked her up as the movie was playing, and I recognized her name, but I couldn't remember why. And then as I'm scrolling down IMDb, I realized that when the whole Amy Fisher thing was happening, and the different networks were competing to see like who could get the first Amy Fisher movie out, there ended up being 3 of them. One starred Alyssa Milano, one starred Drew Barrymore, and those are the 2 that are remembered. The third one that no one remembers was the one that starred Ernest Saves Christmas, Noelle Parker, as Amy Fisher.
Wow. Just wow.
If you had asked me about the Amy Fisher TV movie, that's exactly what I would have said. I would have said, yeah, there's Alyssa Milano, there's Drew Barrymore, and then there's another one. I don't know who the other one is. Yeah.
And that was like literally, I'm the only person who remembers that third one existed, but I didn't remember it enough to instantly recognize her name as soon as I saw her in the credits. I had to basically do the researching, like, oh, that's why that name was familiar to me. It's really a case where the screenwriters make no effort to try to justify her tagging along with Ernest. Like, she just basically like gets involved and stays involved for no discernible reason until she finally figures out they're dealing with real Santa and she can steal his magical bag, but it doesn't give her anything she wants.
She was like an amalgamation of like contemporary TV stars. I mean, Punky Brewster is all over this chick. Yeah. And I mean, there was like
Punky
3
Brewster,
other.
She was 10 years older.
Yeah. This is the progression. This is what happened to Punky Brewster.
Yeah, she runs away to Orlando and hangs out with Santa. Hangs out with Ernest, really.
Which tells you how fucked up Hollywood is, because Soleil Moon Frye was available. They could have just cast her.
It's written poorly. It's written like she's 10 years younger or something than what she is. And every second she's on the screen, you wish she would just go back to wherever she came from. She doesn't add anything to the story.
Well, the script is definitely like so much of this doesn't work, but the script is definitely the weakest part of the whole movie, and you can tell that they knew this because one of the, I can't remember his name, but like one of the credited screenwriters just uses an initial and a last name, which is always a clear sign of like, oh, that's not their real name. They're using a pseudonym for this, especially since it's their only credit.
Oh, okay. Then they said she's from Indiana. I'm like, oh my God, that's really freaking far. How the hell did she get down here? Did she take the Amtrak, which she tries to get away on? Is that how she got here? How what's been going
just kept
on?
Going south. She was going to go to Miami.
She was. Yes, she was. That was the plan.
I mean, they almost missed a chance to really do sort of like a double quadrant movie where you have one for the kids, but then it turns out her character is sort of like an angel sort of situation. And so you have like sort of the hooker exploitation with the Ernest movie. I feel like that would have been a really interesting place to take it, and they just chickened out at the last moment because they honestly they screwed themselves because they could have had a scene with her reuniting with her parents. And it would have been, this moving thing. But it's like, well, no, we said they're in India. Either that or they just didn't want to hire 2 more actors. I mean, that could have been because this movie has a pretty small cast, so it could have been just a budget thing.
All right, 1, now I want to see Ernest Meets Avenging Angel, and 2, the budget on this, they could not have fit anything else. Like whatever they were spending, that's it. They didn't have anything else going on.
And honestly, that would work because Avenging Angel is a slapstick movie. It is a slapstick comedy.
Yeah, but the difference here is that I enjoyed watching that film. That was a very pleasurable experience.
No.
So because he is the reason we watched it, we do have to talk about Douglas Seal, who is amazing. He is truly his performance is so much better than anything else in this movie that you actually get mad for him that he's doing all of this in this piece of shit.
And must he be such an inept Santa Claus though? He's not a very good Santa, Performance aside,
performance-wise, we've mentioned the fact that he waited till the day before Christmas. I mean that's part of it.
I mean, he had the reindeers shipped. I mean, he's just approaching this guy out of the blue. I mean, there's so many things that weren't really well done about this particular handoff of the Santa mantle. No. Not, I guess we can't.
But there's also there's sort of a weird Alzheimer's subtext to his character.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 1,000,000% there is. 1,000,000%. Yes.
So that I think that's how they of course he seems incompetent. He's kind of losing his mind. And, but yeah, no, it does not play well. I think it would have been a lot more fun if they just made it like a Santa deciding it's time for him to retire, as opposed to I can't remember the names of the little boys and girls anymore, and I'm not sure who's naughty or nice anymore. It's just you just want to feed him porridge and just it's okay, Santa, it's okay.
I know that's so sad though. That's so fucking sad. Oh my God. I mean, they do a nice job in a way where they kind of give him a girlfriend. They give him Billy Bird. You can hang out with her now.
I do love the implication at the end that Santa's going to get laid. I feel like that is the nice cap at the end.
And I will totally admit that after seeing this film and seeing him go off with her at the end of the film, it did prompt me to watch about 5 episodes of Dear John on YouTube. That absolutely. and
honestly, the only way to see Dear John now.
It 1,000,000% is, because I was looking, and by the way, God bless the guy who put all 90 episodes on there. Whoever that lunatic is, I really appreciate you.
See, now that I know that they can be found there, I'm probably going to be binging Dear John for a while, because Isabella Hoffman was one of my early crushes, and
yeah, absolutely good times.
And I still to this day, Jerry Burns, he's in a whole bunch of really good stuff. I still go, oh, it's the guy from Dear John.
Absolutely, he is Kirk. Every time I see him, he is Kirk. Yeah. No doubt about it. Yes, and even though he's been in 1,000,000 different things, 1,000,000 different characters, yeah, that's the first place I saw him. That's where he's stuck. Love that guy though. Oh, we still talk about Ernest, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the movie. Was a pretty big hit. The first 3 Ernest movies made a pretty substantial amount of money on limited budgets.
Yeah.
Ernest Goes to Camp was made for $3.5 million and made $23.5. Ernest Saves Christmas was made for $6.5 million and made $28.2, and that was the most successful Ernest film.
That's good math.
And it was number 2 at the box office the week it was released, behind Child's Play. Big week.
While I did not see that until a week ago, I did want to see it. I remember these ads, and I remember wanting to see Ernest Saves Christmas. So even though they did not get my money, but they would have if it was up to me. If I had any.
I am almost positive that I saw this in the theater. But that's the weird thing about Ernest, is that he has no carryover into contemporary pop culture. There's almost no awareness of Ernest P. Worrell now. And at the time, you couldn't turn on a television without seeing Jim Varney in something. Commercials, movies, like these things were all over. And based on the numbers we have here, they were relatively popular.
Well, I think that's easily explained. It's because he died young. Like, if Jim Varney was still alive, then we would have had our remember how great Jim Varney was? There would be we would be having an Ernest reboot right now.
He'd still be doing it. He'd still be doing it. It'd be like Tim Conway and Dorf. It would just never end. Even if you didn't watch them anymore, they would just still make them.
Dorf.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Dorf. Don't forget. 8,000 videos.
So there was, interestingly enough, a 2024 Kickstarter campaign to launch a graphic novel featuring the Ernest character called Ernest and the Dreamstone.
I need more details, please.
Well, I only have one more detail. The campaign asked to get to $35,000, but it raised over $130,000.
I love it.
See, that's what I mean. Like, if Varney was still alive, well, Cherry's passed away too. Yeah. So basically, the two people responsible for Ernest are gone. So I think if they were still around, then we would definitely be.
I think Cherry was involved in the early stages of conception for the Kickstarter and the story for Ernest and the Dreamstone, because this has been working on this for a few years and just launched it last year. The novel is scheduled for release next December 2025.
Ooh, wait. So are you going to tell me that the next time I'm on here for Christmas, we may be discussing a graphic novel instead? Is that what
I think we should do that. Yeah, that's right.
No, I think we'll have to wait until James Trivia to see which movie he wants to do next year, because I'm sure that'll be one of the trivia questions. I mean, I know James likes to plan in advance like that.
Okay, so wait, should we discuss the new Santa? Does anybody have any thoughts about Santa's pick for the new Santa, the Mr. Rogers of Orlando?
I did find
Joe
it funny.
Carruthers.
I did find it funny that sort of they had that horror movie element in it, and they even the title they used ended up becoming an actual horror movie title, which I think is actually one of the trivia questions in the Santa. Because it's the Goldberg one where Santa where Santa was a demon who lost a bet and had to be nice for 1,000 years, and then the 1,000 years is over, so he can go back to his demon ways. So that's the premise of that movie. Although this one seemed more closer to like Silent Night, where Santa is like saving kids from monsters or something, because it seems like he's fighting the monsters as opposed to is the monster.
Yes. And when he's filming that movie, that guy is directing him like it's a silent film, right? All right, have a shocked look, walk over to the door,
it's an Italian production. That's what it was.
Yeah, they're shooting at MOS,
in Orlando, the Italian production in Orlando.
I mean, wasn't that
anything
Troll
for
2?
the budget. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Troll 2 was shot. I don't know if it was shot in Florida, but I know it was shot in the States.
I guess just since we're talking about the Ernest shtick, Chuck and Bobby must be discussed.
Wait. I don't know who these are. Who's Chuck and Bobby? I'm sorry.
Aren't those the baggage handlers?
Chuck and Bobby are Ernest P. Worrell's others. I mean, they're like the plus twos and threes.
Yeah.
they're always involved somehow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, Gaylord Sartain and John Cherry worked together.
Yes.
We before we started recording, James and I started talking about Cherry's other attempt to create a breakout character, where he and Larry Harmon's Bozo bought the rights to Laurel and Hardy and made a Laurel and Hardy film starring Gaylord Sartain as Oliver Hardy and Bronson Pinchot as Stan Laurel.
Yep.
Oh, I know that movie. Yeah, I know that movie.
Leslie! Are you all right?
Yes, I'm fine, thank you, Mr. Hardy. Oh, that was so brave and courageous.
Oh, well, I did part the waters and climb the highest mountain for you.
But he got lost, didn't we, Ollie?
The all-new adventures of Laurel and Hardy in For Love or Mummy.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Wow, thanks for reminding me.
F. Murray Abraham is also in it, by the way. So that's seal of approval.
Hey,
classy as fuck.
Needs to eat. Okay, that's all I'm going to tell you. Guy needs to eat once in a while. Okay, so
he also made a movie called Pirates of the Plain, starring Tim Curry as a pirate named Jezebel Jack. That movie co-stars Charles Napier and Dee Wallace.
Oh, an all-star cast right there. What are you talking about? All right, so I'm sorry. What are these guys' names again? The
Chuck
characters?
and Bobby, or Gaylord Sartain, and Bill Burge.
All right, I'm just going to remember Chuck and Bobby for the time.
Chuck and Bobby.
All right, so you're telling me these guys, are they in all the Ernest movies?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes a little more sense. Yeah, these guys are really hateable. These guys are... they play the very inept guys who are working the baggage, they're working the luggage, the package deliveries. They're in some hangar somewhere. And just like Ernest... The problem that you have is just the awful mugging to the camera. Just so unfair. Just the looks that they give.
I think we got Gaylord Sartain's eye thing 3 times in the movie.
Oh my god! Okay, the eye thing was maybe the most irritating thing in the movie. Yeah, where it's completely unfunny. I don't know who's. This is what made me think. Oh, maybe if I'm 6, that's really funny. Maybe this is for really small.
Well, and that's what I mean. Like, this is a movie for 6-year-olds. That is the level that this is aimed at.
I'd say hold for pickup by, what is that, M?
V.
No, right here. That's an M.
V.
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 All right. That is an M. Hold for helper M's. You know what? That's probably Amish. It could even be Quaker. Only thing I know is it's French. It's French.
V.
Okay, Bobby, I'll tell you what. I need you going back to work. Go on. See ya. Talk to you.
Just so people don't leave a negative iTunes or Apple podcast review, Gaylord Sartain played a character named Jake in Ernest Goes to Camp, but returned as Chuck in Goes to Prison. So he did return as the character, but he didn't play the same character in all of the movies. And it appears he is not in Scared Stupid.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, I don't know does that mean we should judge it that way? I should look at it and say, well, a 6-year-old would find that thing where he bops his eyeballs back and forth and there's some wacky sound. They would think that's funny.
Well, I think so. Looking at this as a whole production and not something we're going back to and saying, well, that doesn't really work as a movie. On a very simplistic level, it is a rather slow-paced, amiable with, it's got some rough edges just based on, the lack of skill in the production. But I think as a kids movie, there's a lot there that they can take away in moments. And they're not looking at it as a 95-minute enterprise. This is like, oh, the eye thing is funny for this guy. And like, I still find Bobby's shtick, like the silent, like just staring like crazy eyes.
Yes.
I still think that's funny. Like, I laughed at Bobby. And that's really all it aims to be, is a like matinee diversion. And in some ways it succeeds at doing just that.
The Chuck and Bobby scenes had a weird tension for me, especially once the reindeer were out of like the box, because I was just waiting for like a flying reindeer poop joke to happen, and it just never did. And that to me is sort of like the lack of commitment of the movie. Did you
want it to happen?
I didn't want it to happen, but I feel like it had to. Like, if you're making an earnest movie and you have, like, flying reindeer in an airport hangar and you don't do a poop joke, like, what the fuck are you even doing? Why are you here? Why are you doing
scatological humor in earnest movies, though?
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to actually give the movie a little bit of credit for not taking that obvious joke.
Yeah, I think we have to go with that.
I'm pretty happy about it. Yeah, no, that feels like a win. That feels like a win. Okay, so I'm sorry. Were we still discussing the poop joke, or did we move on?
I think we were ready to move on past that. I think
thank
we hit
God. Yes. Okay. So next problem. What's the next thing that we need to solve here?
Well, I never had closure on whether you'd prefer watching Santa Claus at this point or Ernest Saves Christmas.
I'd watch Santa Claus again in a heartbeat, like compared to this. Yeah.
I probably would, because I found myself kind of mentally tuning out during Ernest Saves Christmas, even though I find the very premise of the Santa Claus a little like very disturbing. Like, now you're like doomed to become Santa Claus. It's very kind of creepy to me.
I watched the first two of those last year for the first time in a very long time, and I just did not like them. And I remember.
Okay, I have to interrupt. I thought you meant like Santa Claus the movie and not the Santa Claus.
No,
I
haven't
seen any
Santa
of those.
Claus. No.
I have no idea. I haven't seen any of them, so I don't know.
Oh, wait a minute. Alan, you've not seen. I feel like you should not have said that on this particular podcast.
I'm pretty sure I mentioned it on the last one too.
Yeah, I think you did too, but now it counts.
Now it'll be noted. Just exactly right. You made that.
But if we do this next year, then I will say I if we're going to do a movie that has a trilogy, I want to watch the last movie before I watch the first one. So if we do a Santa Claus movie, we're doing the Santa Claus 3 with Martin Short.
And
there's a series too. Do we have to watch that now?
No. So the series doesn't count.
No, I should not acknowledge this, but I've only seen the first one.
Oh.
Yeah, so, if you're looking for plans for 2025.
I thought we already had it with the graphic novel, but we'll just have to roll it in. And
well, you know what? I mean, it could be a multi-part thing.
Bonus episode.
Exactly, that's right. Yeah.
We can add a little positivity in here and talk about some of the stuff we thought did work. I really like the scene where they're getting Santa out of jail, and he's posing as sort of this lawyer, like government type, and the orphan is posing as like the governor's niece. And actually, I really thought her performance was really funny. Like, she's doing this sort of like deliberately fake, like little girl voice thing that I thought, like, the way she was performing it, like, it actually made me laugh.
I hate to interrupt your meeting, Chief Spinks, but he said he was from the governor's office.
Great. That's just what I need today. Some know-nothing from the Capitol taking time out of his busy day to come down here and tell me how to run my... Hell no. I'm Chief Spinks. How can I help you?
Clement here. Sir Clement. I'm with the Governor's State Correctional Institutional Prisoner Fair Treatment Task Force. And this is the Governor's niece, Mindy. Mindy's writing a school paper on how government really works.
How nice.
This is a surprise inspection, Chief.
Now, wait just a minute.
Do you need an education to be chief, or can just anybody do it?
We had to fight our way through an army of TV cameramen just to get in here.
Now, look here. I don't know
what's... Is that S-P-I-N-K-S or S-P-E-N-K-S?
Now, look, I don't know...
I can't tell you what a pet project this is of Governor Ellington's. TV cameramen, are we communicating here?
Were you elected into office, or did you just buy your way in?
Isn't she a doll?
I thought that was all right. It did not bother me. And again, this is where we are experiencing, the talents of Jim Varney, where he's becoming, he's pretending to be somebody else. So I kind of like that.
He's pretending to be somebody else, pretending to be somebody else. It's that extra layer, that Ernest is doing this character. That's why those characters are funny for me.
Yes,
but but also like they're problematic because it suggests that Ernest is a smart guy who is capable of taking on these other personas and get the result he wants. And it makes you go, but then why is he acting like an idiot the rest of the time?
Well, no, it doesn't work. Like, logistically, it doesn't work at all. Like,
I also kind of like the snake guy. Didn't anybody like the snake guy?
Oh, yeah. The snake guy, just for a pratfall bit, was...
Yeah, and even like the sign on his truck, the very poorly put, whatever, it was like a Apopka snake, whatever, snake farm. Like, I don't know, like the whole thing. As soon as he showed up, I was like, all right, this is kind of funny. All right, you got to give it, you got to acknowledge. So,
okay, what's in the truck?
Is this where the horror movie folk be?
What?
I got a truckload of snakes for them horror movie folk.
Well, I better take a look.
Careful now. They be poison snakes. 1 minute, you're a big, strapping, healthy man, and the next, snap, you're dead meat, deep sick.
I better check it out.
And then we grow silent for the rest of the
I think we're all trying to think of the other things that we liked, and maybe we
That's what
out.
I mean. Like,
does anybody want? All right. Does anybody want to discuss the big, exciting scene of the movie when Ernest is ring
flying the sleigh around the world?
Yeah,
I was waiting for the super duper looper from Santa Claus, and just See, I feel like that scene would have played better if they had built it up like Santa Claus the movie does, where there's a special move and they're gonna have to do it at the right time. But you have the one air brakes joke and the two little people playing the elves, and it just is kind of cringe.
Yeah, no, there is a lot of, we need to really cover up just how cheap this is. There is a lot of we're gonna shake the camera, and then Ernest and the two elves are just gonna they're just gonna wave their hands, and we get that like a million times, like a lot of that, and
that was far too long.
It's far too long. It's far too long.
It feels like a third of the movie is him in the sleigh.
Honestly, the theme of the movie actually is right there. Far too long. That's it. That's how I would sum it up.
That was last year's theme too. Really, was far too long.
But at least that's like a 2-hour movie. That felt like a long 2-hour movie. This is a 90-minute movie that feels like a long 2-hour movie.
That's correct. And I will say this. Santa Claus the movie is at least taking a very big swing. They're really attempting something that they don't get anywhere near, but at least they're trying it. This is just, it is what the title tells you. It's, Ernest Saving Christmas. Did anybody think for a second that maybe Ernest was going to be the Santa Claus, like the new Santa Claus pick, like before it was obvious that he'd...
Well, the original screenplay was floating around before it became an Ernest movie. It was basically the Santa Claus as far as I could tell. And then they adopted it for Ernest, put him into it, and it was originally going to be Ernest as Santa Claus. But the studio balked before filming because they didn't want to make Santa Claus a buffoon. Was what I read.
God forbid.
I don't know why that's your line. Like, what?
We don't want to make him, but making him a senilic old guy who's got to give up the job is perfectly fine.
I didn't really see why that was the complaint, honestly. But that was the rationale I read. But yeah, it would have made more sense, I think, as a narrative structure if Ernest did assume the role of Santa Claus, if only for the movie. Like, we don't need to know what happens after that. But, Ernest Saves Christmas, Ernest becomes Santa Claus and carries on, and then, we can come back and with Ernest goes to jail and none of it has to happen. It's a 90-minute sketch. Like, why is this our concern?
I mean, couldn't it just be that for some reason Santa Claus can't be Santa for that night and he needs someone to just step in for the evening, and then that's the movie? Is Ernest trying to all right, I'm just doing it tonight, and then the next day, Boxing Day, he goes back to just annoying Vern.
But also, they had the option of just dialing down, like, Ernest's idiocy by 50%. Like, just make him a slightly bit savvier and get rid of some of the really bad slapstick jokes. And, like, I feel like the Ernest character could work if they did, like, he doesn't have to be an idiot for it to work. And you have these moments where, like, he does seem to have sort of an implied intelligence. So I feel like they just had to, like, slightly rethink the character just a tiny bit. But I guess, like, maybe Varney and Cherry was like, no, we have to be true to the annoying asshole in the commercials. Otherwise, the purity of the character is lost.
The movie goes, I give it like another half star if they just cut out that whole scene at Vern's house, because it's just so infuriating. Look, he's destroying his friend's house. It's hilarious.
Or the taxi cab scenes, like where the guy is going back and forth in the back. And it's like, dude, put on your seatbelt. Like,
there were no seatbelt laws then. I'm sorry that you don't get that.
Yeah, but just for your own safety, put one on. Like,
yeah, exactly. This is exactly the movie where it just goes off the rails for me. Is right there. It's like as he starts sliding back, I'm like, okay, no.
Man, if that's when it went off the rails, you had a long movie to watch.
It was, 100%. That's why neither of us liked this movie, James. Like, we were.
Yeah, well, I never professed to say that it was very good. It just was, and that's the point of Ernest. They existed. They just were.
Yeah. They just were. This is true. I mean, there's a million of them.
Yeah.
It must be acknowledged. Honestly, I'm actually glad that I had seen it because it was something that I remember as a kid wanting to see. So now I've got it out of my system in a way.
Yeah. Well,
that will never happen again.
I think still. Looking back, it's impossible to understand why these movies were hits.
No, because kids loved him. Kids like,
but that was it. It was just like
the character kids loved, and that's why they made money. Yeah, it was literally that simple. I just because like we were talking before Dan got here that there is actually a good movie made by John Cherry and starring Jim Varney that was made before the Ernest movies called Dr. Otto and the Riddle of the Gloom Beam, which you can find on Tubi. And like, it's not the it's not the movie you want to overpraise, but compared to the Ernest movies, it's a fucking masterpiece.
Yeah, I got a lot of money. More wealth than you can possibly imagine. But I like to think I'm the same unspoiled guy dandy I was before I inherited every dime. Yeah, I'm not the only rich person in the world. There are other rich people. I know. I gave them their money. We have company.
Like it has like sort of a similar style, but actually Jim Varney is playing the evil like bad guy, and it's a lot of fun. And it's a case of like when you know that exists, these movies almost make you angrier because like they could come together and make something fun and interesting in this sort of similar style, but for whatever reason they just like couldn't make it work with this character.
Well, okay, so now the Dr. Otto, is that something that's for children or is that for adults?
The most similar movie to it is what's the Dr. Seuss? The 5,000
Fingers of Dr. T.
Yeah, like it's very similar in style and tone to that. Like it doesn't have nearly the same budget because that was actually
it's got no budget. I mean, this is a $5 movie.
Oh, okay. But 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T is awesome. I love that movie.
Yeah.
Watching it, it makes you frustrated that we couldn't ever move beyond the Ernest character. Like, Varney got stuck, whether willingly or unwillingly. Like, he couldn't move on to do anything that was his own beyond Ernest, and he was such a fantastic comedic performer, even dramatic performer. You could tell, like, based on what he did there, that he was just a terrific actor. Period.
There are clips of him doing Shakespeare. Like, he's good.
He was Shakespeare. He did Shakespeare before he became a pitchman for Everything Under the Sun.
I guess Shakespeare wasn't paying the bills.
No.
No.
Okay. All right. Fair enough then.
And in fairness, he was a character actor. And when a character actor gets a character who makes them like a star and gets some leading roles, you don't shit on that. You don't go like, oh, I'm going to, like, because for all he knows, like, he stops doing Ernest and never gets hired again. That's why
he was basically a bit actor for 10 years on TV. He had a couple recurring characters, like I mentioned, but he never had a real leading role until he became Ernest.
Yeah. Well, maybe had that Beverly Hillbillies movie worked out better.
Okay, I just brought that commercial compilation that I just that we mentioned earlier. It just came up on IMDb. It's called the Ernest Film Festival. Can you guess what its star rating is on the IMDb?
Oh, okay. Oh, James, you want to go first?
I feel like it's got to be in the 7s just based on IMDb.
I'm gonna go like 5.4.
It's 7 out of 10.
Oh, all right. There you go.
IMDb.
It only has 269 votes.
You took the 7 when I got something different. Yeah.
It's 269 votes. That means the hardcore Ernest fans have voted it up. I mean, that explains that.
I mean, you clearly know what you're getting into if you're watching the Ernest Film Festival. So I'm guessing, his fans are showing that's who's actually watching that thing. I don't think people are just blindly going, "Oh, what's this? Let's find out."
Fun Jim Varney fact: he was a mountain dulcimer player.
I'm sorry. What is that, Allan?
I know it's a.
It's a guitar type string instrument. It's like this weird funky thing.
It's called a mountain
dulcimer. It's an mountain dulcimer, an Appalachian dulcimer, a fretted string instrument with 3 or 4 strings. It's like a zither.
Okay. All right.
And he played the instrument on the last episode of the Chevy Chase show.
Oh, you know what? That's fantastic. Okay.
Right?
That's fantastic. Yeah. Not a good show, but I like that little bit of trivia.
Well, that's what we're here for.
Absolutely.
I thought about making that a trivia question, but I just didn't feel like that was even fair.
This instrument has existed for about 400 years, and the piano came from this. It was a multiple string dulcimer, then it became a hammer dulcimer, which went through the harpsichord, clavier, and eventually became the piano. So this is the predecessor of the piano.
I don't believe a word of it.
Okay, would you believe this was the predecessor of the violin?
Yeah, there you are. I knew we had something. Play us something.
Okay.
What do you need?
I got a pick.
All right.
You play this on your left.
Okay, since I am on Jim Varney's page right now, I've already mentioned Snowboard Academy as being worse than Ernest Saves Christmas, and it is justly the lowest rated movie on his page. But can you guess what the second lowest rated movie on his page is? I will say it is the third film in a trilogy. It co-stars Lonnie Anderson and Hulk Hogan.
Oh! It's Three Ninjas at High Noon something or other.
High Noon at Mega Mountain. Yeah.
There you go.
I have. It's the only Three Ninjas movies I've seen, and it made me laugh for a random George Carlin joke.
Don't get excited. This isn't the trivia quiz. This isn't the quiz. This doesn't get you anything.
It doesn't count?
No.
Come on. All right, fine.
I'm almost embarrassed for you that you knew that.
I feel
no, that's fair. You should be. That's fair.
we're an hour in now, so I feel like we've reached the maximum we've talked about Ernest Saves Christmas. So I think we've reached trivia time, James. Unless there's something else lingering that you feel like needs to be said about Ernest Saves Christmas.
Does anything really need to be said?
The horror movie director reminded me of Dave Coulier for a second. Anybody else? No?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, a little bit.
I can see him dating a 19-year-old Alanis Morissette. I could see that happening.
All right, James. All yours.
Stand by. Going to air.
Stand by, Phil.
5,
Stand by music.
4,
Stand by now.
3, 2, 1.
And speed up.
How many know what I means are in Ernest Saves Christmas?
Stop it! Stop it! First of all, who counted? Who did the counting?
Oh, that would be me.
Oh no! Oh no!
Oh my goodness! What a all right. First of all,
I will never question your devotion to Sparkle Motion because that was insane.
For you to have thought of this just to begin with, and then the act of actually counting that.
Oh, I knew I needed to ask that question before I started the movie.
I'm going to guess 95 because I feel like there might be a 1 per minute ratio.
Oh wow! Okay, no, that's really good.
That's too high. That is too high.
I was gonna go. I'm gonna go like 60. I'm gonna go 60.
It's not actually that many because if you take it strictly by know what I mean, he only says it 12 times. But characters respond to him saying, I know what you mean, at least as many times.
Okay. So this is, again, just like the movie being 95 minutes, feeling like it's 140 minutes.
Yes.
Know what I means?
Yeah.
12 feels like 60. Okay, got it.
I mean, if you figure how many per minute, like...
It's plenty. No, it's plenty.
It's not plenty. That many. Not that many minutes between know what I means.
That's 1 every 5 minutes. Oh, no, my math is bad. No, that doesn't work.
Okay. At the 1988 box office, Ernest Saves Christmas outperformed which film that we already covered on Cinema Shame this season? Subsection, and by how much?
I don't know. My Stepmother is an Alien by $4 million.
We wouldn't be able to do that one because I've seen it. I don't know if James has, but
yeah. Alan, you must know the answer.
Come on, Alan. This one's for you.
I can never remember what year's movies came out. I don't know what came out in 1988 that we watched recently.
I think it was the first episode of the season.
And you expect me to remember that too?
Come on!
It was not the first, it was one of the first.
Okay, I have no clue.
Action Jackson.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
By $8 million.
Actually, I think we actually mentioned this in the Action Jackson episode.
I think so.
That Ernest Saves Christmas made more money than it. I think that might be something we talk about.
Man, that's sad. Okay.
All right. Next question. Santa Claus, a.k.a. Douglas Seal. The reason we're watching this movie had a 34-year gap between screen credits, 1948 to 1982. After returning, he appeared in which 2 Oscar-winning films?
I don't know.
Aladdin. We already mentioned Aladdin.
Aladdin.
Oh, okay. So that's 1. So we got to get just any other one.
1984.
1984 Oscar winner.
Mm-hmm.
Amadeus.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah, he's the Count.
Billy Bird, the comedic actress that played Mary Morrissey at the Children's Museum, began her acting
Dear
career
John's Billy Bird.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's right.
Began her acting career in 1921 in a silent short called Grass Widowers. She has an uncredited role in what 1951 Ray Milland film featuring a cat that inherits a professional baseball team?
I'm pretty sure that's not a side plot of The Lost Weekend, but it feels like it should be.
Well, that could be a bender.
It's I know it's not, because I know you watched that really bad Ray Milland movie for 64, but that's not 51. So yeah, I don't know.
Dina.
The answer is rhubarb.
Rhubarb.
Okay.
That was streaming on the Criterion Channel not too long ago, by the way. All right. One more Billy Bird question.
Oh, okay.
She appeared in multiple films of which 1980s comedy film franchise?
Oh, Police Academy.
Yes, I thought I'd throw that one in there, a little softball for you.
And she was in One Crazy Summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Which Police Academies?
Oh, 4 and 6.
Yes.
Yes.
Until it's a living, breathing, vibrating extension of yourself.
I look for the same in a woman.
Hey, this sucker's not loaded.
You won't be using live ammo.
Tack. How about letting me squeeze off a few rounds of that baby?
Tack? Affirmative, Mrs. F. Now be careful. There's a .44 Magnum has quite a kick.
Damn, that was fun.
Did not come to Miami Beach. She skipped out on that one.
All right. You're rebooting the Ernest P. Worrell character for a new movie against the advice of every human alive. What actor do you cast to replace Jim Varney?
Kate Blanchett.
Nicolas Cage.
I'm sorry, the answer is Aquafina.
No, mine is better.
Okay.
Kate Blanchett can play fucking anyone, and I want her to prove it by playing Ernest.
That should be the litmus test of your if you're a great actor. Yeah, you're so great. Yeah, go ahead. Let's do it. Let's see your Ernest. Go ahead.
But in reality, if they were to make that movie, they'd give it to Timothy Chalamet. I think we all know that.
Yeah, well, that's the only. That's it. That's the only actor we have, really. All right. The Simpsons referenced a number of fake Ernest movies. Which of the following is not a fake Ernest movie referenced by The Simpsons?
Okay.
Ernest Needs a Kidney. Ernest versus the Pope. Ernest Goes to Space. Ernest Goes to Broadway. Ernest Goes Straight to Video. Ernest Goes Somewhere Cheap. Ernest Climbs Mount Everest.
Ernest versus the Pope.
I'm going to guess Goes to Space.
Goes to Space was one. There's another one.
Oh, there was another one in there? Oh,
yeah, I threw another fake one in there.
Okay, all right. You might have to do some of those again. They've all floated out of my pretty little mind.
Yeah, I'll just give it to you. Ernest Climbs Mount Everest was not.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Ernest Goes to Space and Ernest Climbs Mount Everest were not referenced in Simpsons episodes.
All right, wait. Okay. There's an Ernest Climbs Mount Everest. That's a real movie?
No, that doesn't exist.
Oh, okay. I'm a little disappointed now.
Ernest versus the Pope, though, does suggest sort of like a Godzilla style, like sort of like franchise broadening, where like, so if we were to see Ernest actually go against another comedic character in a sort of a battle royal sort of situation, who would we want it to be? Like, would it be like Ernest versus Pauly Shore, or like Ernest versus like
Oh, right.
Max Headroom would be.
Max Headroom. Yeah.
Oh, that would be
the 80s.
Okay. That'd be the one that I would actually watch. If it's Ernest versus Pauly Shore, it's a lot to take in. Ernest versus the Pope, if it's Robbie Coltrane from The Pope Must Die. Right? I'll take that as well. I would also take Ernest versus Crocodile Dundee, by the way. I would throw that in there.
Wow. Yeah. They were concurrently popular at the box office.
It is sort of interesting how Ernest is like one of those. He's sort of in the like the Abbott and Costello thing, in that they played basically the same characters in every movie, but there's no continuity between the movies. So like, it's like one of those things. Like it's not like these movies are sequels to each other. They're all different, and but it's all like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like when Ernest is getting thrown in jail, he's not saying, "You can't arrest me. I saved Christmas."
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So how do we want to wrap Ernest Saves Christmas? What James? How do you feel is the best way to conclude our thoughts on this film?
Well, we watched that movie. Now we're all.
That's about all you can say.
We've
watched it.
We've all seen Ernest Saves Christmas. Surely there's something good. I do think that it's one of those movies that existed in its time and is a snapshot of culture and media in 1988. If you're looking at the late 80s and not including Jim Varney, then you're missing just a huge chunk of what we saw at all times between the commercials and the movies and even the short-lived Saturday morning TV show, which I remember fondly, and I know that it had. I mean, he won a daytime Emmy for the show, just as he was then nominated for a Razzie for Ernest Goes to Camp. Like there's this weird schism between like this idea of Varney as the pitch man and this talented actor and comedian who created the show, and then once he's on the big screen, there's this. It's the too much, and I think that's what the takeaway is from Ernest Saves Christmas. That's a very singular moment in the time that we were receptive to this idea at all.
Well, James, you said you probably saw this when it first came out, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and what did you think about it when you saw it?
I was a fan of Ernest at the time, and I would have been 10 when this movie came out.
So is there a bit of nostalgia when you watch it? You kind of have a little bit of.
Oh, there's a little bit. Like I remembered more than I thought it would from the movie. Like going in, like I remembered the bits with the snakes and the old woman, and that was a recurring character that Ernest had in multiple films. She actually appears in that first movie that we mentioned. It wasn't necessarily an Ernest character. It was a Jim Varney character that was brought into the Ernest world and reused. So
she's on the TV show, and I think she's also even in some of the commercials.
Yeah. So I did have some nostalgia for it. I didn't remember, I wasn't excited to go, hey, I really need to watch Ernest because this is like a part of me that has been dormant for very long. But rewatching it, there was certainly like a familiarity and like, oh yeah, I remember liking this when I was 10, 12 when I watched it. Even as I don't think I laughed more than twice.
It was nothing of the impressive plot. There's nothing from the story necessarily.
I mean, I remember it's not exactly a difficult concept. I do remember when I saw the Santa Claus originally. I remember going, "That was Ernest Saves Christmas." Like, what are you doing here? I do think there's a pleasantness about just the overall structure of the film, in that it's more like a TV movie now, and what we can see, like production value.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like I just watched Hot Frosty for anyone interested, and I would rather watch Ernest Saves Christmas than Hot Frosty.
That's fair. I'm with you there. I will totally agree with that last statement. Yes.
I just have one last Florida-based question. Dan as the Florida expert.
Yes, I'm here to represent the state.
What if it actually did start snowing in Florida? Would people be happy about it, or would there be rioting and looting?
Oh, that's a great question. Everybody would be fucked because nobody would know what to do, right?
Well, I lived in Atlanta when there was snow. Like, we got a couple inches of snow, and the whole city just fucking shut down for a week. They did not know what to do at all.
That's exactly what I was going to say. People would not know what to do, would not know how to handle it. Everybody would stay inside. But you know what? At least for that very first day, people would be amazed and would absolutely love it for a short period of time. There's no doubt about it, because there's plenty of people here, young people who have never seen snow, who have always wanted to see snow. So there would be that element to it. But yeah, society would absolutely just completely grind to a halt, just like that. People would not know what to do and would just, all right, no one would be in cars. And I can't say that because it is Florida. We have people who. We probably have more people driving around the railroad, the railroad when it comes down. We have that more, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Bright Line train, but it's the deadliest train in the world because people constantly try to drive around it and get hit by the train. So considering that you have that mindset, I'm sure there would be people out there just sliding around in cars. So there'd be that, and then there'd also be society grinding to a halt, and then there would be children outside playing. There you go. That's what would happen in snow.
Well, and there's also a sizable portion of the part-time populace who are specifically in Florida because there is no snow. And I feel like they're the fuckness would be kind of like, hey, we are specifically here because it doesn't have snow, so we want our money back.
That may be true. Those are your people, Alan. Those are your people.
Yeah.
Our theme song was written and recorded by Preacher Boy. Hear more from the godfather of alt blues at preacherboy.com. If you have a confession you'd like to make on Cinemachine, email us at cinemachine@gmail.com. That's all for today's episode.
You have chosen wisely.